Hello everyone, this is Tom Uren. I'm here with another Between Two Nerds discussion with Grugq. G'day Grugq, how are you?
G'day Tom, fine and yourself?
I'm well. This week's episode is brought to you by Tynes, the company that makes an easy-to-use security automation platform. So Grugq, in the last week or so, there's been a quite large hack of Aeroflot, the Russian airline, that's being carried out by the Belarusian Cyber Partisans, and they've claimed responsibility along with a group called Silent Crow, which I've never heard of before.
Yeah, same.
So we thought we'd discuss the hack, what went on, like the impact, and the Cyber Partisans, like what they are. So I guess as a bit of a background, the Belarusian Cyber Partisans are like a Belarus group. They're explicitly against...
They're a Lithuanian organization that's been established as part of a Myanmar underground.
No, okay. You're thinking of the Judean People's Front. Not the People's Front of Judea. So they are explicitly against the... Is it Lukashenko? Is he the...
Yes,
the
Lukashenko
the dictator in charge. And in fact, they're one of my favorite hacktivist groups, but they're also one of the first times that you and I spoke is to discuss for the newsletter whether they were the real deal.
What you're doing is you're actually setting this up to be a flashback episode. Like we've run out of things to talk about, and here's what we said earlier.
So this is a bit of Between Two Nerds lore for the ardent fans. So the hack, they actually have a page where they talk, the Cyber Partisans that is, they talk about what went on. So it says they destroyed over 7,000 servers and workstations in different data centers, wiped out databases and information systems, and they name many of them: SharePoint, Exchange, Sabre, which is an airline system. We downloaded a lot of databases, employee wiretapping, mail, and much more. This is machine translated, so it's not altogether clear what they mean by employee wiretapping. We have uploaded an array of flight history databases, which can now be used upon request for independent investigations. So I expect that's the sort of thing that might...
I was going to say, like, expect Bellingcat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of broad shape of what they say is the impact. And then they talk a little bit about how they carried it out. And so, for example, they say, together with colleagues from Silent Crow, we spent many months in Aeroflot's corporate network developing access. Successful penetration was largely possible because some employees neglect basic password security. For example, Aeroflot CEO Sergei Alexandrovsky has not changed his passwords since 2022. And they've got screenshots, network diagrams. So it goes on that a huge number of Russian flights have been postponed or cancelled. When the news broke, there were pictures of just those airplane or airport flight boards with just a sea of red from all the Aeroflot flights that have been cancelled. So that is a brief recap of the hack. I guess it's, to me, the interesting things are that a civilian hacktivist group carried it out. I'm wondering about the longer term impact. Like, it sounded like a very plausible and competent hack. Like the talk about spending a number of months in there, that seems like about right. The possibility that you could have a large impact, that seems possible, if given the right network, I guess. And it seems plausible that a Russian airline might have that kind of right network, where right means not very well secured.
Yeah, so it's interesting that they mentioned that there's there's 2 locations that they hit, and they each have a corresponding data center.
Right. Yep.
That sounds to me like they sort of they probably had they duplicate data between the 2 of them, so they've got like maybe not a hot cold failover, but they're running off both data centers sort of simultaneously. So if one gets hit, the other one can keep going, and vice versa. So
yeah, I mean that reminded me of NotPetya and Maersk, where they had, I think, they were following the same strategy. They didn't have explicit backups, but they were backing up between, I think, different domain controllers. And they had 97 of them, if I recall correctly, some large number.
That's significantly more secure than just having 2.
Yeah, and they were saved because there was a power
like a
failure.
Nigerian server. Yeah.
So I guess when you've only got 2, that's you would spend a lot more time and effort making sure you didn't have a simultaneous power failure at both. So in a way that makes you worse off.
Yeah, I strongly suspect that if you have 2 data centers and you're probably doing this hot cold failover or running with both of them at the same time, when they get wiped, you're stuffed.
Yeah, 2 does not seem like enough.
Not for a national carrier for a country the size of Russia, right? That seems. Yeah, you kind of feel like you need to have a 3rd one that's offline, except for nightly backups.
Well, I mean that's the standard advice for anyone, isn't it? Like if you care enough to actually do backups, you should have 3.
Yeah, and you should test that you can restore them, but and you shouldn't run Windows XP and Server 2000 on your network.
Well, and now that I think about it, you're right. This is exactly the advice I would give someone, like just a friend.
Yeah.
Who would ask me? I'd say,
I wouldn't run a home network like this, right?
That's right. Yeah, so that seems like it seems like they may have had success, but it's because they fell on fertile ground, right?
Yeah, I strongly suspect that part of the reason that Aeroflot was able to get away with being so lax is because, as the Russian carrier, they're not vulnerable, or they're not at risk from ransomware, or the majority of cyber threats, right? So it's just it's not going to be something they really worry about. So if you're Qantas or you're Delta or you're basically any other air carrier, if your systems go down, you lose a lot of money. So you'll be ripe for ransomware. Right?
Yep.
You'll be a great target. But if you are literally Russia's flagship carrier, if you got hit with ransomware, there would be bodies strung up over a bridge within 24 hours.
Yeah. So Qantas, which is Australia's national carrier, got hit by, it seems like it was hit by scattered spider. So the kids who were very good at social engineering, and they got access. Yeah, they got access to customer details, but nothing else. And so that speaks to me, well, actually they probably did a reasonable job in isolating other parts of the system.
Yep.
Those things always get treated as serious, but it could be so much worse.
Yeah, it's you've got the core stuff that which manages your inventory and your flights. It's things that make you work as an airline.
Yeah.
And then there's the things that allow you to interface with customers and sort of offer services, and that's important. But you can sort of get away with losing that for a while, because you can at least still know where your airplanes are and how they've been serviced and where they're supposed to be and who's flying them.
Yeah, and in this case, it doesn't seem that Aeroflot was that lucky or that well isolated, I guess. So there's another article we were looking at before from Medusa, which is a magazine, media outlet that focuses on Russia, and it produces a lot of good material. It's critical of the regime. At least the stuff I've read is critical of the regime. So it doesn't just whitewash things. So the very first day, there were a lot of cancellations. It says 42%. And so this article is looking at how the longer term impact has played out so far. It's only been a couple of days. However, the company, Aeroflot, states that roughly 80% of its flights flew the next day, and it expects 93% the day after. So
these are sounding a hell of a lot like dictator-era polling numbers for elections.
Right.
Like it's, yes, we lost our entire infrastructure, but we had a 95% success rate. We counted ourselves, so I'm skeptical, but on the other hand, I think both of us are old enough to remember in the before times when they had airplanes.
Right. where you turn up with a physical piece of paper to get on a plane, like a ticket, which was mostly just carbon paper.
When like a ticket was literally a ticket. So, maybe they were able to run some stuff on paper. I believe that would be the stopgap measure, but I can't imagine that they've recovered from this properly.
I think ironically, a company that is least well prepared from a cybersecurity perspective may be so used to outages and failures that it's actually best practiced for operating.
It's just a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Right? Like they're like
computer down again. Oh well.
Yeah. I don't know if it's a cyber attack or, just normal.
So I don't know. I've never flown Aeroflot, but that's one thing that occurs.
So I think what's probably going to happen is they're going to slowly claw back. I mean, so all of the stuff I've seen on social media from Russians has been complaining about flights.
Right.
That everything is screwed. You can't get anywhere. The pictures of people sleeping in terminals, which doesn't seem to me like an 80% success rate on flights. That seems an unrealistic estimation.
Right, yep.
But one of the important things that we've learned from the Ukrainian-Russian cyber war is that hacks are not permanent. Right?
Yep.
Like these things are not they're not fatal blows that take everything down forever. Like Viasat, huge death knell blow, biggest thing ever. Within a week, everything was operating absolutely normally. When Kyivstar got wiped, like absolutely everything that they had got wiped. It took them 7 days to get back up and running. And, telcos are very, very complex. They're at least as complicated as airlines, if not more so, because of the amount of complicated equipment and stuff that needs to be configured. I strongly suspect that while, I don't think that they were back up within 1 day, I think in 2 weeks, they'll be absolutely fine. So one of these partners says this is strategic, and I don't believe it is. I think that the aims are strategic. I'll give them that, but I don't think the effect is going to be strategic.
Right. So even though you're skeptical of Aeroflot's claims, you're on the side that, maybe it's not quite that good, but it's better than total destruction of Aeroflot. It's coming back.
Yeah.
In a matter of days to weeks.
Yes. So I think it's very hard to be decisive with cyber. Like you need to, it can create an opportunity that can be exploited.
Yep.
If there was a competing airline to Aeroflot, for example, this could be a strategic victory for that competing airline, right? Where you could just say, bring your Aeroflot ticket and we'll, honor that. Something like that, it's, if you switch your loyalty, we'll be your carrier.
Yeah, so it's a sort of reputational and business loss, but it's not the end of the company by any means.
Correct. That's my feel.
Again, it's hard to tell because you're not dealing with neutral observers. It's hard to get objective facts about which flights flew. So we'll still wait and see.
Fortunately, it was in Russia with one of the most lax and open media. It was, one of the highest ratings on press freedom. So, we'll just see what Pravda has to say about it.
Yeah. And I guess at some point we'll see the databases of flight manifests and be able to see the impacts. So one of the interesting things to me is that the Cyber Partisans seem to be one of the first genuinely successful hacktivist groups. And it's also interesting to me that they behave a bit differently from other purported activist groups in that they've got, for example, I've heard it described as a declared public spokesperson. So she'll go to conferences and think tank meetings and express some of the views of the Cyber Partisans, which seems different from the normal hacktivist group.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that sets them apart is, first of all, maturity. I mean, not that they're all, decrepit and old like us, but they're not made up of teenagers, right? They were people. They were like working adults with jobs who switched over to doing this. So they had they could delay gratification and important things like that teenagers are not known for.
Yeah. My impression is that they're a group of maybe middle-aged is not quite the right word, but mid-career professionals who know what they're doing and so understand how to work together.
Yeah.
And
that's certainly the impression I get from them as well. And so that's been very important because it's allowed them to sort of plan and execute. I think a lot of hacktivists just go straight to the execute,
right?
And then see what happens. Like whatever falls out. Whereas these guys, they're very much a political organization, or they have explicit political goals. They view hacking as a way of achieving those goals within a strategic framework that they've developed, which is wonderfully naive. I've said that they're mature adults, but they read a lot like freshmen in college sometimes.
So maybe they're mature IT professionals, because that seems like an IT professional kind of stereotype, maybe.
Yeah. Sort of perhaps early on, sort of a bit earlier in your career before you've been exposed to just how little your stuff matters compared to the business.
Right, yeah. Yep.
But yeah, like they have this sort of, we're going to do this thing and then Lukashenko's regime will fall. I don't think you can do that with cyber. I mean, I'd love to be wrong, and if they achieve that, then I'll switch my PhD topic immediately. But
yep. Yeah. So the public interaction, one part I mentioned was the declared spokesperson, and then another part is the detail they go into in this sort of hacking blog. What purpose is that serving though?
Yeah. So to me, I don't think hacktivist is necessarily the right term, because of the sort of baggage and the implications it has or the connotations of teenagers just doing vandalism or something. These guys seem much more like the militant wing of a political party that doesn't exist yet.
So, but surely in Belarus there are people who are working against the regime, right?
Yeah.
Now, is that a resistance,
there's sort of,
or is there no party because they're not allowed to be a party?
I think the last crackdown sort of came about because the election was stolen from the legitimate opposition, who were also suppressed. That's my understanding from something that happened many years ago that I didn't look into very much.
Yep.
But there are obviously opposition political figures. I don't know whether they're out of jail or out of the country or what. I know that the Cyber Partisans actually have been working with some of these guys, that they are interfacing with more than just other techies. They're working with people who do have political vision and have a sort of strategic understanding of things. perhaps these people haven't had a chance to read the manifesto and explain to cyber partisans that hacking is not going to achieve things like that.
If you're a politician, I guess, and someone comes up to you and says, I want you to hack to help me win an election, it doesn't seem that the cyber partisans are doing the kind of dirty election hacking.
No. Yeah.
Right. So it's not we want to steal an election back. It's like we have a political goal that we're trying to achieve.
We're trying to, right. So
and if I recall correctly, it was stuff that would reveal how bad the Lukashenko regime was. So it was...
they were trying to sort of instigate protests and mass movements by leaking how bad things were, which, as opposed to, getting compromat and pressuring people to, back out of races or whatever. It was put within a political framework that made sense of mass mobilization, of trying to get international attention, to apply pressure, these sorts of things.
Yeah. And as an outsider, it seems like that's a fair way to fight against a dictatorial regime. Like that's the kind of moral way to do it, rather than trying to also steal elections or engage in dirty tricks.
Yeah, one wonders sort of how effective this can be in a military dictatorship like Lukashenko has. I think that's the downside. These sorts of strategies can be effective in a slightly weaker dictatorship.
Right.
It's just, where public pressure is possible. In this case, I think what you need the security forces to switch sides.
Right.
Right. Like if the police refuse to show up and shoot protesters, you win. But if they're showing up and shooting protesters, then you can leak all you want. It's still...
Yeah, in that sense, some of what the cyber partisans has done is leak material that shows that the police are behaving badly. So that is not necessarily a way to win them over, but maybe it's a way to point out that there are bad apples in the police. So I guess it depends on the bad to good apples ratio.
It would be more of a news story if there were good apples in the police.
Right, yeah. So being public is all in service of that, trying to create a mass movement.
Yeah. They have a whole strategy document, and it's internally consistent, but I think it's very naive. And it's wonderfully naive, right? Like they're
But I mean, I guess what else have you got, right? If you don't have, like, it sounds to me like it's cynical. A document of hope rather than...
Yes. Yeah. Do not bring your document of hope to me if you want to sign off. Yeah, I'm old and cynical, and I'm not going to be inspired. To me, the cyber partisans are interesting because they're different from sort of regular hacktivists in their way, right? They're not the sort of angry teenager vandalizing things. They're very much strategic and purpose-driven. But that's also what sets them apart from like these state-sponsored hacktivist groups like you were seeing with KillNet and things like that out of Russia, where it was very much, one FSB officer and a bunch of ducklings.
Right,
like these. Part of what sets them apart is not just their activities, right? Like they don't do DDoS, but KillNet could do hack and leaks if they wanted to, right? That's not outside the realm of possibility. But like the cyber partisans just very much have a direction that's political, consistent, motivated. They're authentic in how they behave. They're very open about what they're doing. And I think the actions speak for themselves in a way. Mm-hmm. They sort of have to. Like you can't necessarily trust what they say, but you can see what they do.
Yeah. That's why I was wondering why they bothered to put out a post, because their actions, I thought, did speak for themselves. I guess the only thing that would require justification is you're the Belarusian cyber partisans. Why are you attacking a Russian airline? And I think in the post it addresses that in a sentence or two, talking about the relationship between Putin and Lukashenko.
I mean, it's a very fair assessment to say that like if Putin is gone, then Lukashenko will follow.
Right.
Therefore, if our goal is to get rid of Lukashenko, we start by getting rid of Putin.
So
Yeah.
I guess to sum up, we both think that this was like a significant hack. Like this is one of the bigger hacks that has affected an airline ever.
So one thing that we haven't discussed is I think that there's a psychological impact to this that's beyond sort of like the physical or economic impact to Aeroflot, which is that the cyber partisans and others are sort of trying to make the Russian public aware that the war is going on and bad things happen. You know, and I'm sure that they are aware of this, but it doesn't necessarily affect them. Right? It's like, another oil refinery got bombed, or a drone manufacturing factory got hit. You know, those aren't great, but unless you work at that factory,
Right.
it doesn't really matter that much. But if all of your flights get canceled, that's a serious disruption to your life. You know, and it has that impact. And I think in that sense, it is more impactful than Kyivstar, for example. Right? With the Kyivstar hack, people were telling me they're super upset, so they walked across the street, bought another SIM card, went about their day. You know, it was sort of like, oh, this is terrible. Well, anyway, but you can't do that with, like the only air carrier, right? Like if you're stranded at the terminal, you're stranded at the terminals. You can't just get on the other flights. You know, congrats to them for having possibly the most impactful cyber attack of the last several years of this conflict. I think this is bigger than Kyivstar in terms of its actual impact. But similarly, it's going to be ephemeral. It's going to be fleeting.
Right. I mean, I guess in a way, if you're the resistance, having a high-profile hack is a win in terms of the propaganda value and the reputational value. So even if the hack, the impact of the hack is ephemeral, the stories last for a lot longer. So at this point, we think the hack was very well done. At the same time, it's going to have ephemeral effects. Aeroflot will be fine within a couple of weeks. On the third hand, this will have impact, right? It'll because it's a high-profile hack. There's an outsized impact on the way people think about, I guess, the Belarusian resistance.
Right, and the special military operation, as the Russians call it.
Right, yeah.
I think the impact of the hack exceeds the actual size of the hack.
The impact on the population, you mean? Like what?
Yeah.
Its influence.
Yes, okay. So I think the impact of the hack on the population exceeds the size of the impact of the hack on the target.
Right.
Like the intent is to achieve effects on the people, not on Aeroflot. And I think that that's been successful.
Right.
So this is absolutely the Kissinger quote of, the resistance wins if they do not lose, and the state loses if they do not win. And I think that this shows that the resistance is still there, absolutely not losing.
Yeah, so I guess even though we spend a lot of hours talking about how ineffective cyber operations are in war, or how they have a limited role, I guess it's more fair to say, when it comes to this hack, where thumbs up, cyber
absolutely.
all the way.
Cyber all the way.
Thanks, Grugq.
Thanks, Sam.